was Spezielles. Eine kurze Vorstellung unseres Chors. So ungefähr die Hälfte. Moritz sollte auch singen, ist krank geworden. So, das ist halt immer was. In der Schule, man hat nie 100%. Okay? Unser Chor ist ganz neu. Wir haben erst im September angefangen und die Kinder, in English, and the kids, most of them have not sung in a choir before. So it's a whole new experience for them. And we try to make it really fun. You know, it's not a concert choir like in high school or so where they're all dressed up and sing. So it's lively, right? So it's because also the age group, we can't have them standing like Dorian columns, you know. So okay, so we have picked out 5 songs, and we start about so in dark. So what a day! It should never end because it's so nice. Okay, so I hope it is. And I always play the tune first, and then we will sing together without them. And I have to remember that I have the glasses here. Okay. In the past, we had quite a lot of choirs here, by the way, and then we started about like 15 years ago, and then it just kind of fizzled out with all the moving from Lauderdale then to university, and from university here, then the old building, then the first edition, second edition, or so. So I think now it's back to normal, so we can do stuff. So this is the first one. So I'm down of the metropolitan. So eyes one beyond speed and see. And now we play the second time with the piano. Meet come here. Good start. Okay, then a couple of kids will, you know, as I said, they want to move and not stand still like Dorian columns. And so some of them will have a little dance in between, okay? I think it's Rani and Ginny and Emma and Olivia. Right?
I'm not doing it.
Okay, all of them. Play the tune first, okay? Don't sing it, okay? The sun is her glint, but I need the flesh and blood. And the seas of the was on the so big man, sing the flow. So ganz allein, den schönsten Wasser als die ganze Welt, denn das ist der Wasser, der alles ist. Okay, that's when the wind we just did that now. I know that hasn't been rehearsed before. Really good, great. Okay. Probably everybody knows the next one, Edelweiss. You probably all have seen the from Trapp Germany or so. And Edelweiss, it grows up in the mountains in Tyrol and so on, and a little bit far apart from where I come from. I come from Vienna, so there's no Alps there. But it's not far away, like a 3-hour drive, and you're right in the mountains.
3-hour drive.
What do you mean? Is it too long or what? Okay. Again, I play first, okay? Right. We go classic again, and you probably all know Ode to Joy, Ode an die Freude by Beethoven from his Ninth Symphony, and this is one actually favorites of that too. No? Okay. Okay, I play it again. We have a strict schedule here, so we have to finish now. Right? So, okay. Second group, remember, Rania, Tini, back. Remember, 1, 2, 1. Right. But I play first. That will put you in a good mood for the meeting now. So everything is positive, okay? All right, so that's, we go, or should we stay or what do we do now?
Yeah. So if the parents can stay, you're welcome to stay and hear the service awards that we have for our staff who are here tonight. And I don't think that'll take too long. And then we do have some really fun treats over there, including cookies with the school logo on them. So can stay, that would be wonderful. If you do need to leave, please let your kid take a cookie home and whatever else they'd like. If you get to stay, kids, you can have a seat.
We can test you if you can stay still.
You can have a seat if you can stay.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. All right, well, that certainly put me in a good mood. So thank you all for bringing your kiddos to come and sing tonight. That was a super awesome treat. So appreciate it. Yeah, you're welcome at every board meeting. All right, it is, what time is it now? 6:48, and I'll call this meeting officially to order. We'll start with a quick roll call to see who is here and if we have a quorum. Yulia, can you do that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
1 second. All right, Director Albers.
Here.
Director Alcatute.
Here.
Director Dayton is not here. Director Eberhardt.
Here.
Director Hartman.
Here.
Director Height.
Here.
Director Kuitzinger is not here. Director Von Dobbs is also not here. Director Miller is as well not here. Director Reich. Here. Director Tesfa Jesus.
Here.
And ex-official member Executive Director Christensen.
Here.
Excellent. At 7, I believe we have a quorum. So thank you all for being here tonight. Let's quickly approve the consent agenda. Without objection, can we approve the consent agenda? Hearing no objection, it is approved. All right, let's move on to our special recognition. So this is something the board does annually, starting about 4 years ago. And we recognize TCGIS staff who have been serving the school for 3 years, 5 years, and tonight 10 years. In the past, we've also had a 15-year, a few of them actually now. So that's been really fun. So I'm looking forward to the 20-year coming up in a couple years here. So let's see, we've got our slides sharing. We'll start with our 3 years. And so if you are here as an honoree, I would love it if you could come up here and receive your plaque. And we did have the opportunity for all community members to write notes of congratulations. So we will be giving that as well tomorrow. But we have a few quotes to read from that collection for every honoree tonight. I think so. Maybe just read the quote. Yeah. All right, so we'll start with Sam Graff. He just left.
He just have it on there.
No worries. We can jump ahead to Yulia Henriksen. Our very own Yulia Henriksen. Come on up and get your.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here for 3 years and keeping the board in operating condition. And the executive director. Kirsten, can you read the quotes for her?
Sure. Yulia, you are nothing short of amazing. Thank you for helping me with seemingly everything and being a friend through the past 3 years. Your commitment to helping all of us is commendable and appreciated. And another colleague wrote, you are such a pleasure to work with. Thank you for all the support, organization, and positivity you have brought to our school.
Did Sam Graff come back?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep going. Margaret Zielinski. Congrats on 3 years with TCGIS Frau Kaffee. Thank you for all of the support you've given Monet over the years. We appreciate you. Thank you for your work and compassion with the students. They are growing and flourishing with you supporting them. Your support of your fellow staff also means a lot. Congratulations to Margaret. Next, we'll honor Kirsten Köhler.
Sure. I have enjoyed watching your endurance, perseverance, patience, and passion in teaching during the most challenging time in a teacher's life. I wish you all the best for your future and that you may teach many more children, along with another family who wrote, thank you for your contributions as Judah's teacher these past few years. We appreciate all you've done to play a part in his growth. Thank you.
Next, we recognize Kat Sweeney.
Kat, you are such a fun person. The students love your science class and your colleagues love working with you. Thanks for all your hard work. Another colleague said, dear Doc, I'm so glad you came back to us again. You connect so well with middle school students and inject fun and joy into their science classes. I always enjoy your laugh and your perspective on kids and learning.
Next, we recognize Andrew Lubin. You don't have that one.
Thank you for making Emily's first year at the school so wonderful. She thinks you are very funny, kind, and fun. You are her favorite. Never underestimate the incredible role you take in each child's life during the time they are with you. Danke from the family. And another comment is, thank you so much for sharing your exceptional talent with the TCGIS community. You are an incredible teacher and TCGIS is very lucky to have you. Thank you so much for guiding May through a year of COVID, hybrid, remote, in-person, etc. instruction. Despite the tumultuous contact, May was happy and engaged learner, much due to your talents. May Hackett. Thank you.
And next, we recognize Kim Micklin. Sorry.
Thank you for your kind and patient way of supporting the students. I'm happy to work as a coach with you this year. Another comment, Kim, it's been wonderful working so closely with you the past year, and I can't thank you for all your help, listening, and ideas to implement. Thank you for all you do.
And next, we recognize Principal Elizabeth Zenfenig. Come on up, Elizabeth.
I'm so excited for this.
We have a list of this. Blizzard, thank you for your work with our middle schoolers. Liam is excited to have another school dance, so thank you for getting. And thank you so much for all you do for the students and what a positive impact you've had on our school. Your smart, sensible leadership, kindness, and proactive communications are inspiring. Congrats on 3 years at TCGIS.
And now we recognize Mary Zimmerman. Yay.
Mary, thank you for all the hard work that you put into TCGIS. You wear so many hats and work so hard to make our school shine. Your work to support literacy, wow. Your work with fundraising and your awesome communication and connection skills make our school awesome. Dear Mary, thank you very, very much for all of your many talents that you share with our school. You are so creative, calm, organizing, and just amazing. In my opinion, you moved the school's social media to the next level. Our Pixie Book online reading was one of my favorite activities during the pandemic. I'm looking forward to working together with you for my time on the board and beyond. Thanks again. Oh, Silka. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, let's give a big round of applause to Sam Kraft. Where did Sam Kraft go? We'll circle back to him. All right. Well, congratulations to all our 3-year honorees. Next, we recognize our 5-year honorees with our very own director, Emily Albers. Oh. Thank you.
Frau Albers, you ROCK. TCGIS is very lucky to have your talent as a teacher and also as a leader. You are an incredible teacher, spreading the joy of learning to the students in your classroom. You are also a talented administrator, compassionate, empathetic, capable, and committed. The school and community are very lucky to have you. Thanks for everything you do and for your many efforts to infuse diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice into the school's mission and work. And another colleague wrote, that was from a family, this is from a colleague. After spending a lot of time in your room our first year, I'm so happy to be co-teaching together. I think we make a good team. I was always so impressed at how thoughtfully you ran your classroom. Congrats on 5 years.
And next we recognize Monica Avery.
Thank you very much.
Monica, thank you for all your compassion and care when our kids are not feeling well. You take everything in stride. And thank you for soldiering through the COVID pandemic. What an adventure you have had. You always strike such a good balance between gentle and firm. I love that you make a trip to the health office a German immersion experience. Congrats on 5 years. Next, we recognize Michaela Bromanchinkel.
Michaela, thank you for so much for all the support you gave us in Kinder Club and summer camps. They would not be able to run as smoothly without someone at the head taking charge and making decisions. I hope this year went well for you and summer camps go smoothly again. And from a different family, Danke Michaela, for supporting all of us working parents. We appreciate your wonderful communication and care.
Very nice. And next, we recognize Roxanne Cornell. For 5 minutes. Congratulations.
Here's the box.
Thank you for being a brave person. When I recruited volunteers for our TCGIS curriculum video, you were quick to put aside fear and help. I appreciate you and your courage. You were so much fun to meet and work with. Roxanne, you rock. What would math be for so many of our kids if there wouldn't be you so dedicated and knowledgeable to teach it to them? Thank you.
Congratulations. Next, we recognize China Davis. So one first grade student says, I like you a lot. And a colleague says, congratulations on 5 years, China. TCGIS is grateful to have you on our team. It's been fun working on displays with you and getting to see you interact with students. And now we have our very own director, Kevin Eberhard. I'm here.
Director Everhart, thank you for creating such a great learning space for TCGIS students. May loves learning German and enjoys so much being in your class. Thank you for creating such a great learning space for the students of TCGIS. And another student, yep, says, thanks for all you've done at TCGIS. Thank you.
Next, we recognize Deanna Irwin.
From one of our families, thank you so much for your life-giving work with our children. You are amazing. And congratulations on 5 years, Diana. You are an amazing colleague, mentor, and person. TCGIS is made better every day by the work you do here. And I really value all your advice, thoughts, and time spent processing with me. Thank you for inspiring me to be a social worker and reminding me what that means. Thank you for making time and space to support me at work. Thank you for affirming me and reminding me why I am here and what I bring to our team. I am so glad to know you and work with you.
Next, we recognize Ruth Jansen. Or Janssen.
We'll bring it to
Julia, do you have that one?
I can wait.
I'll give you one.
Awesome.
You'll
Thank
get-
you.
I didn't get to knight you. Okay.
Wait in.
A first grade student said, "You're cool and awesome." And a family said, "Your calm, thoughtful, and patient work with Gus has made such a difference. Thank you."
Julia, do you have one for Cynthia too?
Yes, I do.
There you go. And we're out of red lanyards. We'll bring them to you tomorrow.
Thank you for all your support and encouragement of our TCGIS runners. Cindy, thank you for all that you do to support, guide, and teach our students and staff. You are great at working with these kiddos. Thanks for being such a wonderful part of our team. From a colleague.
Next, we recognize Zach Orwell.
You are an icon. It has been so fun getting to know you, and I appreciate your humor and dedication with every student you encounter. You are the kind of person who makes work and life better. Cheers to you and your exciting career ahead. And wow, congrats on 5 years of time well spent at TCGIS. You were always the fun one at Kinder Club. And now we are glad to see you continuing to advance your career in the teaching space. Thanks for everything you do for our kids in the TCGIS community.
And next for 5 years, Juliana Stoltenbach.
Who's watching online?
Greetings to you online. Congrats on 5 years. We were so lucky to have your patience, sense of humor, and willing involvement. She came to every class gathering for 2 years. It's clear how much you care about the kids both in and out of the classroom. This was a time that could have been a lot more chaotic without you as we switched between in-person and distance. And another family says, our family had the pleasure of getting to know Frau Stoltzbach as our son's first and second year teacher and could not have been more impressed. Her passion for her work and work with each and every one of her students became apparent during our conversations. She works tirelessly to achieve her kids' learning goals on a foundation of trust and deep understanding of and care for each child's individual needs. We miss her, but are grateful for her and all she accomplished during the 2 years she led our son's class. Congrats. Nicole Spain, our HR manager.
Congrats on 5 years. I'm so glad you're at TCGIS and I get to work with you. You absolutely rock and the school is a better place with you here. Insert emoji of a smiling face. And from another colleague, congratulations, Nicole. Your support and kindness have been so appreciated in the office team and the school as a whole over the last 5 years, and TCGIS wouldn't be the same without you.
All right, we are going to loop back to Herr Graf. Sam Graf, are you in the audience now?
Come on up.
Come on up. We're going to recognize you for 3 years. Go back to that one.
I'm sorry, everyone. I just had a really close family member pass. It's all things.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But it's like weird to be in front of people.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Thank you.
He has been a really great teacher. I've learned a lot from a student. Sam, your enthusiasm for lifelong learning and your authentic way with kids and colleagues alike are gifts to this community. Thank you for sharing your many gifts with us. We are lucky.
All right, that brings us to our 10-year honorees. We have Andy Nessett in the audience.
Das bringt mir besondere Freude.
Okay. Thank you.
Dear Andy, I think being TCGIS's Director of Facilities and Grounds is your calling. Thank you so much for all of your knowledge and skills you are contributing to our school. To another 10 years, don't even start thinking about retiring. And a family wrote, thank you for taking great care of our school. You are appreciated.
And Ava Schneider Baumeister.
You have one for me. Doch, haben wir. Doch. Okay. So schnell kommst du nicht weg. Ah, danke schön. Moment.
ja.
Das ist, ja, gerne.
Vielen Dank.
Ava, you are such an asset to the school and to the ADSYS team. I've greatly enjoyed all our conversations and shared lunches over the years. I love your sense of humor and your dedication to the students. Congratulations, Ava, from a colleague. Ava, your connections and knowledge about literacy and language always astound me. I'm so glad my child has been able to work with you and that I've also had that opportunity to work with you. And next, we recognize Alex Weeding. Alex, thank you for everything you do to keep the front office running smoothly and safely for our school community. Your attention to detail and care and concern for all of our students is much appreciated. Congratulations on a decade of wunderbar work at TCGIS from a family. And one more from a family. We appreciate having you in the school office. Thank you for your cheerful, knowledgeable, and efficient work. It's such a treasure to have an experienced parent on staff at TCGIS. Margaret Sims, come on up.
Hast du andere?
Da müsste noch eins sein.
Ja, für sie ist was da, aber
Ja.
für die anderen nicht.
Ach so, ja, die gebe ich dann in der Pause.
Congrats on 10 years, Margaret. We appreciate having you on our team. Thanks for being such a rock star teacher. And from another colleague, I'm glad I was here when you came back and graced us with your presence again. It has been amazing to get to know you and see how you interact with the students. They all love you and your class, so I know I'm not the only one appreciating your presence. Thank you for all you do with the students. I can't wait to continue my education in the education field in the same school as you.
Okay, that concludes our recognition this evening. Let's give one more round of applause for everybody. And we'll call a recess for 20 minutes. I'd like to ask the Liederkranz choir to come to the front for pictures with the board. And then we'd like to do the same with the honorees. But in the meantime, help yourself to the treat. All right. And now it's just the board. And our friends online. Okay, it is 7:38 and I'm calling this meeting back to order. We do have time for public comment on the agenda. But nobody's here, so we'll skip that. We just asked for public comment for those that are present. And anyone that wants to reach us can also email. All right, we'll close the public comment and move on directly to the executive director's report. Director Christensen, you have the floor.
Thank you. Okay. So honor her time tonight. I'm going to start with a report on the international staff recruiting process with Katarina Schleer, who's our Director of International Programs and Transportation. And I will link to her presentation here. And now I have to figure out how I can get back out of this once I'm in it, but we'll see. Okay.
Okay, I will try to summarize. Actually, when Director Christensen asked me to talk about, I was like a slide or two, and then I started making it, I was like, oh, that was, yeah, it won't be a slide or two, but I will not read everything. So if you have questions, you can ask as well. So
It's really, I told her it's really interesting stuff that I knew the board would care about. It's such an important part of the work we do here. So
yeah, it's really fun and it's exciting work. So I'm really glad that I get to do it. So I'm just going to go over the timeline, how we post jobs and where, the eligibility things we need to think about, the process for connecting with them in our interview process, job offers and applications, and then sort of in the end, how we support their relocation and orientation. So our timeline, you know, we leave some postings up year round, and actually European teachers tend to plan further in advance. So we get a lot of applications sent to us all year long, whether we're actually hiring or not. They take the initiative to send it to us. And so we keep all of them in a chart and then we refer back to them when we're actually ready to hire if they match. So I didn't include that, but that is just something to know. We are always receiving them and connecting with those people. But really in December, we can't really do much work before then because we don't do our intent to return until January. So we don't know who is coming or going, or who's leaving and who we need to replace. So that really starts, kicks off in January. And our admin team takes time and our HR person to connect with everyone who says maybe they're going to return. They don't know, just to sort of start finalizing what places are actually going to be open. During that time, I'm going through the list of folks who interviewed and checking eligibility, and then setting up what we call in-focus place or like pre-interviews. Those really start in more intentionally in February after the interns are here and settled. We do that in February, and that's really a conversation about everything except the job, except the actual teaching aspect of the job. So that the second interview that they have is actually about the role of teaching, and they can really talk about academics and pedagogy. But what we talk about is much more about fit and about living in the United States, what it's like to work in an American school in German. And we try to have that conversation in advance. And it really helps me figure out, is this somebody who's excited about that? Or is this someone who's hoping to work in a German system in another country, in which case that's not necessarily what we are. I did have one, I've only ever said no probably to one candidate who was mostly concerned about bringing her horses to the United States for 3 years and did not agree with us having a mask mandate at the time. And I was like, I think we will not go to the next step. But otherwise, it's generally, they're generally really good conversations, and I usually recommend, because I also only interview people who meet our eligibility criteria. So I really try not to waste anyone's time. In March, we start, so after I have the in-focus place or the pre-interview, then I pass them on, and then our admin teacher team interview them. And now we're beginning the time in March, so we're actually making offers. And also by March, things have firmed up a little bit with our staff who are kind of on the fence about whether they're coming or going or staying. And so that's when we can actually start making offers. It's also when we start the J1 visa application, and that process happens through until our teachers, our international teachers are done with that. So that'll be a rolling process. April, May, and June, we'll spend supporting the new teachers with their relocation. Sometimes I've gone to look at apartments or have called people and asked if I could come see the apartment for them. So we just really try to help them decide, should I move into an Airbnb? Should I get a house? What should I do? So that they're ready to come. They're closing up basically life where they are to come. Some of them arrive end of July. They can come 30 days before the start of their visa. And so depending on their plans, they will come, and then if they would like, we meet them at the airport, bring them to their apartment, kind of help them get set up with the bank and Social Security, and so that they feel like their life is ready before school starts.
And when she says we, she means herself.
And Kathleen's and all, we've done that together in the past.
Yeah, Kathleen and Kathleen did most of that work. It's
Sometimes my husband.
really
So,
important work.
we post in a couple of places, and I will say we don't, we have, like I said, so many people contact us in advance that we don't have to seek out a lot. The first one where people really find out about us is the Weltverband Deutsche Auslandsschulen, the WDA or the WDA. And I sort of leave our posts up there kind of ongoing. We also have a general ES, a general MS, and then, elementary school, middle school, and special ed, because usually we will have at least one position in each of those. I've taken the middle school one off now because we are done with hiring for that right now, or at least with interviews for that. But that's really where the most people find us, and teachers from Switzerland, Austria, and Germany use that one. So, and actually this year we have got candidates who are in Russia and in Turkey applying as well. So it's not just, it's basically for teachers of German to look.
Will you cue me when to move on to the next slide?
I will. The ZFA is another one that is, so we currently have a teacher from the ZFA, and that is a federal agency, or it's part of the federal agency. And they actually help support a teacher salary too. So it's exciting for us. They can help with DSD, but they are still German government employees when they come to us. We don't actually have an interview process. We get assigned a teacher, which is maybe more in line with the German education model, where you put your hat in the ring and then you get assigned to the school. You don't really get to decide. So that's also an interesting aspect, that our pre-interview and our interview process for some of our international teachers is a very new process, that we would be looking for them, that we would be looking for fit and asking questions that go beyond what your grades look like, how do you, beyond just classroom management. We do really look at fit. So next. So Checkpoint Charlie Foundation is another connection we have with Germany. We have had teachers apply to them and they get on a list, but they want to work abroad. And then if we see kind of a match for subjects that we need, they will facilitate a connection. I did not do that this year because we had so many applicants through the other ways that I didn't even get to it. And sometimes they will send us the list before we're ready to look. And so one time when I have called back, they've been like, they're all gone, sorry. So our timing is a little bit different, like I said. We don't post as much on Indeed or LinkedIn unless, at least for expect international candidates. We do post there for teachers and for staff, but not with the intention to have an international candidate find us on Indeed or LinkedIn. And all of our jobs are always posted on our website too. So if they find us, they will see it there. These are the two main things that are important when I'm looking at an application. Are they eligible to teach here? Can we get them a visa, and can we get them a teaching license? Because without either of them, there's no point in pursuing that. So we work with CICD by Intrax, which is a visa agency, and they do our intern visas and our teacher visas. And so we've had lots of conversations about what counts as 2 years full-time teaching. In Germany, to get your teaching license, you have to do 2 years of the Referendariat, or 18 months. And a couple of years ago, they said they were not counting that as experience. And now
It's
they
essentially
are.
student teaching.
It's student teaching, but you have your own classroom. You're responsible for the notes, and you're also going to school at the same time. And it's a really intensive experience. And so I always felt like it should be counted. They're doing so much teaching. And so they are now counting that, which is exciting. It's also exciting for our interns who are going back to do their Referendariat, because it's a shorter time frame for them to maybe apply to come back and work here. So they need to have at least 2 years of full-time teaching, and of course, teaching certification wherever they are currently working. The other aspect is getting a Minnesota teaching license. And generally, we prefer a tier 2 because we don't, with tier 1s, we have to prove that we couldn't get anybody for that role with a tier 2, 3, or 4. Tier 1s, you can have a bachelor's degree, it's only valid for a year. Tier 2, you come in with a master's, it's valid for 2 years, right? So there's a little bit longer time there. So that's what I'm always looking for with our teacher candidates. So I mentioned a little bit about this. First, we do this pre-interview and informational interview, and I use this rubric. It's kind of hard to see, but it really makes sure that I talk about all the things with the teacher in specific. So I always talk about our school as an American school. I talk about the visa process. I talk about life in the United States. For many of them, I really try to explain that we are a car-dependent community, like the Twin Cities, Minnesota is just car dependent. And so not to come and expect to be able to take public transit everywhere. They ask about seasons, of course, in winter. And so it's just important. We talk a little about health insurance. Health insurance is more expensive here than it is there. So the things that we have heard from past international teachers that were unpleasant surprises. I really try to take that information and make sure people know in advance what that means. We have a much longer school day. Our day is 8:15 to 3:15. In Germany, they end between 12:30 and 2, right? They do their prep work at home. We do our prep work in school. They might not have as much supervision there like we do here. So our school year is longer. And I try to really talk about that because we have had candidates in the past be like, well, I know what a German school is like. That's great, but we're not a German school. We're an American school that teaches in German. So that's really important for part of that. They usually have a lot of questions, but what I would say is I've never had a candidate who didn't read our website very thoroughly and have like, well, I know this, or I looked at your pedagogical concept, or I know this, I know where your school is, it looks really green. Like, so people really do their research before they find us. So that's been really great. So then I pass them on to the interview team. There's usually an admin person. So it's usually the executive director, Kirsten, and their principal, either or together, and then a teacher in elementary or middle school, or in the same subject area for middle school. We want to make sure that our teachers get a feel also and can impart what it's like to be here as an international teacher. And typically we ask international teachers to be in on the interview because they can also identify maybe more quickly what is so different and can speak to that. These are just some of the topics that our questions explore. We do give the questions to the candidates in advance, and they are all written in English, so they have time to prepare their answers. If there aren't any non-German speakers in the interview, sometimes the interviews are in German, but they will ask the questions also in English so that we can sort of suss out how comfortable is this candidate speaking English. We did have one candidate this year who went through the interview process and then wrote us back and said, my English is not good enough to come. I won't be able to be in your school and communicate with parents. My English needs to improve more. So that's also good for them to know that that's an expectation. So when we make a job offer, we have to look at our salary schedule, right? We have to look at, make sure that we don't know whether our salaries are competitive or not necessarily. We know that some teachers in Germany are like, oh, it might be a pay cut. And so we talk about the benefits of being here. It's a big deal for someone to pick up their life and move here. So we talk about all the benefits around it, but they have to feel comfortable knowing that this is the salary that they have. And then this year I created a form for them that really talks about, these are what taxes look like. This is what health, this is our benefits manual. This is what the health insurance looks like. I don't know how much your take home will be because I don't know your taxes exactly, but you're going to have to look at all of this together and see for yourself. I give them links to look at for apartments and housing and neighborhoods so they can kind of assess for themselves what's it going to be like. Because that's a big, we want them to feel confident in that we can't make that decision for them. And then in terms of relocation support, I've kind of mentioned this a little bit. You know, it's really hard to find a place to live. If you look at Google Maps, you have no idea how far something is. So we talk about how they're going to have transportation and sort of phasing in whether they want to move right into an apartment or they want to do an Airbnb and kind of land and then figure it out after that support. One thing that I have felt badly about and I would like to do next year is have more community support or more of a committee on our staff to sort of scaffold those folks coming in throughout the year, because I can get them going in the first month and then interns come and then fundraise, right? So I can't do that always, and it would be nice to have it for a year, the first year for sure. And so I have some ideas about connecting with some staff to start a committee and then inviting families to sort of sign up to connect with our new teachers who've come in the last year as well. Sort of just help them. We do a lot with our interns and they have a host family, but our new staff don't have host families. And so that's a piece I feel like is missing from our onboarding. So in a nutshell, okay, I'll take your questions.
I think it's a
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of families would be happy to do it.
I think so too.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you for that summary. Other questions?
Yeah, if I remember right, you said that the German like teaching assignment happens before we really start to search, is that?
I mean, the Germans generally are looking further in advance than
Yeah,
the
okay.
divisions. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Do you ever feel like there is an issue there? We're limiting the candidates the type of candidates that we get or the number of candidates that we get because we can't do it? Yeah.
No, I don't. That's a good question. I actually don't, because I think in January, at least that's not the impression I'm getting from the teachers I've interviewed so far. Maybe the ones with families are like a little more like, the sooner you can tell me, the better. But other ones who maybe are on their own and have just their apartment or their things alone to do, feel a little bit more flexible. Sometimes I did actually do an informational interview with a teacher who is looking a year in advance.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah, and so I tried to save those a little bit further towards the end of my schedule if I know that, this I just happened to find out. But they have a family to move, and if they are already civil servants in Germany, they have to request a leave from their contracts, from their school, and their school gets to decide whether or not they go. And there are some financial considerations if you're a civil servant and you step out of your civil servantship for a while, civil service, and then come back in. And so that's another financial, I think it's important for our school to know that there's some really big financial decisions when someone's already a civil servant to step out of that lane and then return. The German education system, being a teacher there is great. It's a great career to have, and they really support, I think, teachers financially and want to keep them understandably. And so that's a hard thing to leave. And so sometimes when I hear families say like, oh, our turnover is so high, I think, well, the visa is only 3 years and then we can renew. I guess I didn't mention that. So the J1 visa is good for 3 years. We can renew it for another, I think it's another 2. And then we have to move to a different type of visa. And what's interesting is the J1 visa, if you have a family, they get J2 visas and your partner can get an employee or can get work authorization, and the H1B they can't. So they can come as a family and 2 parents can work. And then if they want to stay longer and get H1Bs, all of a sudden the other half can't work. And so that is a really big decision, right? That people are like, well, if I don't have a green card, like, what are we going to do? And so there are some extra issues for teachers who are coming here to think about. So we can't keep folks when there are big decisions like that.
And they go from J1 to green card.
They can, but not through, we don't take that process, but they can apply to the lottery every year. The J1 visa is an exchange visa. So the Department of State expects those teachers to go back, right? So that's also, it's a kind of a tense, there's some Spannung, there's some tension there for a teacher who's like, I'm here on an exchange visa and I'm applying, like, I'm doing the lottery and I'm trying to get a green card. So I really think about our international teachers who are here on visas and how much they're kind of holding in the balance. J1 visas cannot apply because it's an exchange visa. They can't apply for a mortgage. They can't own a house. So with kind of each level, until they get to a green card, they're not really free to maybe build the life that they could build at home or wherever they moved here from, right? So those are considerations that we try to support as far as we can, but those are decisions they have to make.
We have several teachers this year that we're moving to the H1B process, so that's great for us.
It is.
Longevity for us with those teachers.
Exactly. And I actually talked to all the interns who left, and asked them what their plans were and when, if they thought they might want to come back. And so actually we had a handful actually in this last group who said they were very interested. And that's such an advantage for us because they already know, they have connections here. They know what the school is like, they know what they're getting into. And so the climbs, it's not so steep, right? The learning curve won't be as steep.
You don't have to meet them at the airport.
Not their host families can. Thank you, host families.
Are all teachers in Germany civil servants? No.
No, it's a decision that they can make when they finish. They're usually they're teaching, the student teaching piece, they can decide. We have a candidate who applied this year who said, I've been teaching for 7 years and I decided not to civil service because I knew that I think when you apply, you can't wait for 10 years. So they also, so for new teachers, that's maybe a bigger question that they're asking themselves, like, yeah.
Is it the same process we keep talking about Germany, but for Austrian teachers or?
Those are great questions.
Teacher?
It's interesting. I was just emailing with Kevin because we do have applicants from Austria, and in Austria, so in Germany to teach, you need either the second state exam or a master's degree to get your teaching, like to be a licensed teacher. And in Austria, you can start teaching with your bachelor's degree. But I think the expectation is you'll get your master's, correct? I'm looking at you, get right. So if they've got 2 years of experience, they can get a visa, but then we have to see, can we get them a tier 1? Or can we hire someone else with a 2, 3, or 4? Right? Do we bring, and they don't apply for the license until they get here because they have to do fingerprints at the BCA. And we have their diplomas officially translated, and then we submit all of that to the Professional Educator Licensing Board, the PELC, that's really close by, but they do that once they get here. So I don't want to bring anybody over who we can't get a license for. It's also interesting that we cannot hire kindergarten teachers because in Germany, in Austria, and Switzerland, kindergarten is not an official school year, it's preschool. And that's a different educational study. And so they don't have a university degree. And to get a teaching license in Minnesota, you need a university degree. So that's a tricky piece for us. We tend to then, for the last couple of years, we've started looking at hiring kindergarten teachers who are maybe already in the States or who have a bachelor's degree. It's not a super fit for a teacher who studied to be an elementary school teacher in Europe, who's used to grades 1 through 4 or 5. Because our kindergartners are really for them pre-K, right? Because we're not teaching to read. And they're used to kids being 6 and our kids come in at 5. So that's a little bit trickier piece for us. And I don't generally look for elementary or kindergarten teachers from abroad because the ones who actually have that training cannot get a tier 2 or a tier 1 or tier 2 license unless they've gone and gotten a bachelor's or master's as well.
So are you saying you can't hire kindergarten teachers here from
No.
there? You can't hire people that study to be kindergarten teachers specifically?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. And I don't, it's not like an associate's degree, but it's Ausbildung, right? So it's not a university degree, but it is a certification to teach that age, but it's not.
It's a different kind of high school. It's a 5-year-long high school.
The training, like
Mhm.
post gymnasium, yeah. Mhm.
It's high school for
Oh.
5 years, where that training is included in your high school.
Mhm. And they're young, like early childhood educators. So they're not, in the similar way here, you don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree to work in a big school. So that is something that we have to look a little bit differently for the kindergarten teaching piece.
Maybe when we open that preschool.
I'll just mention, you said Indeed and
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. I was just reading in one of the mass bulletins, there's, do we know about this? I didn't, but I wouldn't. You can post jobs for free
Mhm.
through
And
the
both.
Max thing.
Yep, we do
Okay,
that.
so you
Mhm.
know that.
We do that especially and we actually post to the AATG, the American Association of Teachers of German. And so I guess I consider those as sort of local US candidates.
It's not the
Mhm.
international.
Yep, you're right. Max, the Charters Association, and Ed Post are free posts. So is AATG. Mhm. And then we also send, just as the local piece, to all of the universities and colleges that have German programs. We send the jobs to them as well and ask if they would share it with their alumni and their graduating students.
Could you imagine going over to Germany to do recruiting in Germany?
Yes, I could. Yes, I could. Actually, we have a really good connection with the university in Frankfurt. Andreas Hensich is our intern contact there, but he's in charge of the Department of Internationalizing the teaching career. And so he has I think 1,000 at least students have already done internships outside of the country who are teachers. And so he's got, I think, a pretty decent network, pretty deep of alumni who are teaching in German schools. So I definitely could see us going and setting up a time to have kind of mass interviews. If, again, right, if we know how many folks we need and when, that's kind of the tricky part.
And in some years, it might be 1 or 2. This year, we have a little higher need.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's hard to ask, right? That's kind of that cultural piece too, where sometimes I'll talk to a German, they're like, oh, I'm actually thinking like, not this year, but then the year or the year after. And I'm like, oh, no, sorry, we're gonna have to talk in 2 years because I'm not near that. And even interns will plan their internships 2 years in advance. And I just have to kind of pause and say, we can't do that. I don't know, right? So our timelines look different. But it hasn't, this year, I don't feel like it's been a problem. We have excellent candidates. And I've been really happy with the folks we've brought. So I think when they decide, yep, that's the place I want to be. And we decide, yep, that's somebody who's really into this innovative, creative, it's going to be different and I'm up for it. That's a great fit. So.
Do we have money budgeted to support teachers as they would apply for a green card or staff in general?
I don't know. Do you know, Kristen? I mean, I think we have a line item for visas, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it extends to green cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's a relatively expensive process.
You
would have eyes for
international
shy.
books.
Any other questions for Katerina?
But that's an interesting thing we can consider.
There's like some ways to get the green card maybe a little bit cheaper because there's insurance companies, legal protection insurance companies, and you can like sign up for $20 per month. And then you get 20% discount on attorney fee. And this attorney will be in the network of the insurance company. So I did that. I paid like I think $1,400 for the attorney fee, which I think is very cheap. So this is maybe something to consider. It's called, I can send some information. It's called our Legal.
Yeah.
That's
That would be great.
incredibly reasonable.
Yes,
Mhm.
thank you.
Fantastic. Good thing you stayed. It's a good thing you stayed.
And I have one more question actually, because one of our best friends, Mike, she just started to study actually in Germany to become a kindergarten teacher. So I think they changed a little bit the process. I don't think it's a requirement necessarily, but it's definitely now also like opportunity to study that. So hopefully that will make things easier in the future.
Right, that's a great thing, because there are a couple of tracks for high school that are different, right? That's different than if you don't know the German school system, you might not know that one track leads to an apprenticeship or an Ausbildung, or like learning a trade, or becoming an early childhood educator, and one path leads to university. And so depending on what school they've gone to, they may not have been on the path for doing the Abitur, which leads to university, but you can also move over. There's a way to do that. So that's great, but then you can afterwards study, even if you haven't maybe taken that path originally.
I think it's University of Applied Science.
Yeah.
It's not a university, but I think it's very similar.
And that's interesting, like the Fachhochschule, there are different institutes, right? So different institutes of higher ed. And so we have to make sure that they are evaluated as the same number of credits, if they are evaluated as being the same as a university degree. Because all the Helsley wants to see is that you have a bachelor's equivalent, a master's equivalent, right? And so it doesn't matter if you've done Fachhochschule, but it doesn't meet the bachelor's minimum or the master's, then they won't offer a teaching license. Yeah.
So, is it the requirement that they have a teaching license? Is it does it come from St. Thomas, University of St. Thomas, or
You mean the international teachers or the local teachers?
the international?
They have to be licensed to teach in their home country. So wherever they are working, they have to have the licensure for their own country. It is trickier with Austria and Switzerland because they can already be licensed with bachelors. And so we just want to make sure they could only have a tier 1 license. And we have to prove that we couldn't put a tier 2, 3, or 4 teacher in that spot. That's part of the tier 1 licensure piece. And that's really meant for like entry level, like, or moving from, hey, I was a science major and I'm going to be taking classes to teach, right? So it's sort of the pre-teacher licensure route. And so
But they get licensed here, right? They get licensed by MD. It's just that those requirements
Yes.
fit the requirement for getting a teacher's license.
yes.
So that requirement comes from state of Minnesota.
Yes, it's the state of Minnesota requirement. And I did actually ask, I asked our contact at Kelsey, if there was any wiggle room, if kindergarten was maybe a different situation. And she said, nope, kindergarten has the same licensure requirements that it's a official school year, right? And she said, but in your spare time, if you would like to lobby at the Capitol to change the rule, I encourage you to do so. And I was like, thank you. So we did inquire about that.
Right,
Thanks.
any further questions?
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And
My pleasure.
telling us about all the important work you do.
My pleasure.
We all know that you do important work, but it's good to know what it is also.
Thank you. I love doing it. So I'm really happy. I feel really lucky to get to do this part.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Katerina. Okay, moving on. Something very, very different. Because of the number of snow days we've had, we need to move to suggest some changes to our current school year calendar. I know we've spent time looking at the other calendar. So here is all these different slideshows. It's not a draft, says it's a draft. So here is some Minnesota statutes that indicates the length of the school year and the number of hours of instruction. And I want you to note that students in grades 7 through 12 have different requirements than students in grades K through 6. So here is a worksheet that indicates for grades 5 through 8 how many whole days and early release days they have that total the number of minutes. So this is all considering a full last day of school. We have often had a half day of school, or the last couple of years have had the last day of school has been a half day. But this is taking into account that the last day of school would be a full day. So one school day or a partial school day is needed for all grades. And we need 1,020 hours for grades 7 and 8. So we need to make up 17 hours. Here are the considerations that we looked at. The non-student contact days that are available to us as contact days include the following: March 31st, which is the day before spring break. That is a daytime parent-teacher conference. So staff are working on that day, but kids are not in the building. April 21st is a professional development day. May 26th is a professional development day. June 9th is a grading day, and June 15th is the day after the last day of school, and it's a teacher work day. One of these days has to either be a full day or early release for all K to 8. We chose recovery options that do not include March 31st or June 15th. Because we assumed that people didn't want their spring break impacted, and we assumed that people didn't want their the school year to go beyond the already planned school year times. Additional considerations: 7th and 8th grade students need to make up a minimum of 17 hours. Although K to 6th graders do not need to make those, all teachers are on the same contract. Options include extending school hours for 7th and 8th grade students, adding instructional time for 7th and 8th grade students during recess, and reducing passing time. Although reducing passing time is tricky for a number of reasons. Adding instructional time during recess presents the smallest logistical problem, and doing it during capstone affects fewer students. So if we do it during when our 8th graders are abroad, then it only affects our 7th graders, but it still counts for our 8th graders. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so we have 5 actually, the 5 options that I'm going to show you. And we have a recommendation of, we sort of have a recommendation. Things got a little cloudy after staff meeting, but I'll just let you look at these. I won't go through all of them. I'll just give you a couple minutes to look at each of the options. So keep in mind that we need to recover 17 plus hours. And what you'll note here is that the first 3 options don't give us any cushion or barely any cushion beyond those 17 hours. So if we were to have another snow day, and March is typically the heaviest snow month in Minnesota, if we were to have another snow day, we wouldn't have any cushion in this option or in this option. This is option 2. We wouldn't have a full day. We would just have a little bit of time, but not a full day. I'll move on to option 3. And option 4. This is the option that we will probably recommend to the board. So it preserves some PD on April 21st. It's the only one of the options that allows for a full day cushion due to future weather events or to help with future weather events. The con of this is that we lose time both on the professional development time on May 26th and the grading day work time. So after talking this over with staff at the staff meeting on Wednesday yesterday, there was some talk about the following, and that is, you'll see in bold there on the 3rd line that the grading day becomes a full student contact day for 7th and 8th grade students only. That is another one. So everything else is the same on this. And what we've added here is that under pros, the 3rd bullet point, it preserves a portion of the grading day for all teachers. So what we would do in this option would be that only 7th and 8th graders would come to school. 7th grade and 8th grade teachers would have a staggered schedule so that no teacher would be teaching all day, so that they would all have some time preserved in the day to do their grading. And the elementary teachers would then have the day to grade. A possible con of this is the 2nd bullet point there, that it may impact childcare for some families whose older students care for younger ones when families are home. If you're trying to think things through with an equity lens. So we can't recommend both of these to the board, so I should have taken that out. So I guess we wanted to open a discussion here potentially tonight. We didn't take a vote of the staff, and I wouldn't say that it was a majority of the staff who said, it was reported to me, I wasn't able to be at the meeting because I was sick yesterday, but it was not a majority of staff who brought up the option of having only 7th and 8th graders come. I didn't add here cons for having only 7th and 8th graders come on that day. It provides some interesting transportation logistical issues for busing, right? We would probably need to reconfigure routes for that day. Lunches, we could figure that out probably. But we've never done that before. I'll just say in the history of TCGIS, to my knowledge, we've never just had 7th and 8th graders come. They have a higher demand for instructional days anyway throughout the year. And we don't set them free, or we don't set our kindergarten through 6th graders free 3 days earlier, 4 days earlier than our 7th and 8th graders in the regular school year. So we have to consider whether this is the time that we want to make that accommodation now. So I guess I'll just, I think I'll just open it up to anyone, any input.
Can you re-explain the grading day in the new proposal one more time?
So the grading day becomes a full student contact day, but only for 7th and 8th graders.
Yep.
Right,
And-
because they're the only ones who need to make up that day.
And are those teachers going to be teaching all day? The
No,
7th and 8th
we
teachers?
would figure out a schedule so that no teacher has to teach all day. So that the teachers would be staggered in some way. Principal St. Penning was not able to be here, but she said she's confident that we could work something out so that all teachers would have some portion of the grading day preserved.
Do you have any idea, like percentage wise, like, are they gonna be teaching 20% of the grading day? 60%?
I can't tell you that yet.
Yeah, okay.
Probably something like 20%.
Because I'm assuming there's a lot more teachers in the building than teach 7th and 8th grade. Right,
Right.
yeah, so if everybody took a turn to try to cover something. And
Yeah.
understood.
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess I can get conversation started unless anybody else wants to. I was here yesterday for the meeting. And my biggest takeaway from the day was grading day is the line for teachers. And I had a few teachers email me and kind of say the same thing, like, it's unfortunate if we lose PD time, but understandable that it might be unavoidable, but it's really the grading day that most teachers, if not all teachers, would have a serious problem with. So I'm happy that the new proposal looks to address that in some manner.
I have a note here that Principal Zenfenig said 20 to 25%.
Thank you.
One question I have is, did administration consider adding minutes to every school day to finish this? Or I'm just thinking my high schooler, that's how they added or made up the time from the teacher strike,
Yeah.
was to have a longer school day.
We did not.
I'm wondering if we did that, how many minutes, like, could we just do it till 3:30? Anyway, we'd have to do those calculations.
I was gonna say, there was just talk yesterday that with busing schedules, that would be somewhat logistically tricky. Obviously, 3:30 is when buses are heading out. So, maybe it wouldn't push back too much, but I know that was part of the conversation about extending school days was kids were already done, teachers were already done. And then also the fact that we have busing routes that are not just ours.
It was brought up yesterday,
Mhm.
and it kind of seemed like that was somewhere that nobody in the room wanted to explore. Nobody wanted to add time to the day.
Was the 15th talked about with staff, I think June 15th? You said you assumed no one wants the school year to go longer, but that Thursday.
I mean, they saw this presentation, so it was listed on there. We just listed it as a consideration. We chose recovery options, so we just stated that we chose recovery options that did not include that. So, again, I wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah.
Did anyone say they wanted to
We-
go long?
It didn't really come up once the grading day thing came up. That's where the conversation was focused. I would be curious, and it is unfortunate that we need to probably approve something tonight or hold a special meeting, not that I wouldn't be willing to. I know the original proposals were brought to the union for their input. Was the new adjusted proposal brought to the union?
No, we didn't have a chance.
Has the union leadership expressed concern about having different schedules for different grades? Because they are all on the same contract?
We didn't discuss an option that had different schedules for different grades with the union. We can do that. The union president was out today.
Yeah, Julie, it was my understanding that that's where the idea of not all teachers having a full grading day, but most teachers having most of a grading day would come into play to kind of, well, any issues that teachers in the union would have with the 7th and 8th grade being here and no one else. I would be really curious if we could figure out a field trip for the 7th and 8th graders on June 15th.
So
Or on the grading day,
But
or on grading day.
field
Or on grading day.
trips, field trips, so grading day would be. It's either the 26th or June 9th. I know that Elizabeth said, I can't remember when is
So-
capstone. Do we have the dates for capstone? Anybody have those in their
is
head?
that the 22nd to the 9th? Is that?
Right.
Well, that kind of
21st.
is online if you want to
Oh,
connect with your principal.
yeah. Principal St. Penny,
I'm
you would,
here.
go ahead.
So the June 15th is the teacher workday, which is also an opportunity for grading if teachers need extra time. If we do a field trip on that, it's entirely possible. That's probably what some of our plan could be for June 9th too, but we're going to look towards the freer field trips because with busing, field trips are running anywhere from, $20 to $40. And so we're really trying to not force the extra day that we have to take to cost families.
Money.
Yeah. But we do
So-
have a good plan for fun on June 9th, I think.
How many minutes is a full day versus a half day?
370 versus 220.
370 versus 220? And how many recesses would that make up if we had to just extended the recess for 7th and 8th grade?
Well, remember that the extension for the recesses would happen if we needed the extra day. We've built cushion in. And so it's
Okay.
entirely possible if we take this grading day, which we feel is is a sure thing, that we would not have to dip into the recess time as much. That becomes our cushion.
Mhm. So if we get to May 22nd, when the recess, dipping into recess would start, and we haven't had any more snow days, then we could choose not to dip into recess, keeping our mission of the whole child, education of the whole child in mind.
I think there's 60 minutes that we would have to dip into at the very least.
And is that May 22nd to June 9th because that's capstone?
Correct.
Yes,
So it's just 7th graders.
June 7th is when capstone returns. And so there's a couple extra days. The June 9th is because that's the amount of time we needed.
yeah. And planning a field trip on June 9th when the principal has just returned from capstone on June 7th would probably be a little crazy.
Was there a consideration of the half day for next week, making that a full day?
So we
really
need to
gets
have that
next
time
Wednesday.
for PLCs. PLCs was a big consideration of getting our PLC time in, our commitment to teachers for QComp.
Was May 26th thought of also or instead as a 7-8 only day?
No, because that wasn't the concern of teachers. The concern of teachers was grading, not professional development.
Right, but we could, I mean. Would be possible to do both of those days as 7-8 only school days.
I'm not doing a calculation in my head well.
So that falls apart if we get more than one snow day
Mhm,
and don't do the 15th.
mhm. Are you on option 4?
That's your 4A. Is the 4 other one would be
It's
half
not in the
day?
packet.
That's off now. I was thinking about the field trip idea too. Because I wonder if we have to, like, how much will it cost to get food service in? Do buses if we have to do buses, if we have the full school in session. Or even if we do 7-8, but if we go on a field trip, we don't worry about food service. Right, so there's a bunch of, like, I mean, or does our contract just let us add a day of food? Because
I
the kids
talked
will
to
be
both
here.
the food service person today and the transportation, and we have, and they can both pivot easily. So food service has a little longer window. They need to know almost a month in advance.
Okay.
But we're well ahead of the time for both of those.
But is it
But do
costing
we
us,
pay?
yeah, anything additional?
Like, is it more than the cost of a bus to take the kids on a field trip? That's my question.
I don't know. Yeah.
With food service, since they didn't bring food here the snow days, are those
Do we have
snow days,
credit?
are the makeup days included in our contract at no additional?
Probably.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good.
And same with the busing, I guess the busing contract would be more
Yeah. Okay.
imperative to know.
Mhm.
Elizabeth? Are you still
Yeah.
on?
Yep.
You get the sense that grading day is more important than 7th grade recess for 2 weeks?
Well, you were talking about two different groups of needs. You're talking about
Mhm.
teacher needs and student needs. And Kirsten and I talked a little bit about that today, that when we make decisions like this, we take both of those really seriously into consideration. And at the end of the day, we are here for students. We follow the we follow the collective bargaining agreement, and we make decisions that are best for students. That's a cryptic way of saying, I hear what you're saying. I'm not
Understood.
sure. I think it's students.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
I feel like it would be hard on teachers for kids not to have their recess too.
Yeah.
So like I see that benefiting teachers as well. To get kids outside.
Not only then in that scenario are students not going outside and getting the benefit of being outside, but also that instructional time. Someone is covering that instructional time and it's teachers.
When's capstone?
The 22nd through the 7th.
So PD 526 becomes a full student contact day. Is during capstone.
Correct.
It'd just be a 7th grade field trip.
How does the field trip not impact having teachers?
How does it not impact, but
Aren't teachers still on the hook for being with the students on a field trip?
not all of them?
Not all of them, and there's nothing going on in the school.
There's also nothing to plan. Technically, I mean,
So
planning a
does it
field trip, but
count as an instructional day?
depends on the field
It
trip.
kind of seems like that's. not
Field
totally
trips count as
legit.
instructional time, right, Elizabeth?
Field trips count as instructional time, and the difference is that when you take a field trip, you don't need to have, there is no quota of licensed teachers per student. So I would likely be on the line that day with a bevy of support of EAs, parents perhaps, and we would be doing something. And so the teachers would be able to have their time. We have more flexibility in how we staff a field trip.
Could you talk about the plan for next year's calendar and how to prevent this? Before we approve that calendar for next year, do we need more buffer days, or could you talk about the e-learning option?
Yeah, so e-learning is not an option for this year. It requires that a plan be written and presented to the community before the beginning of the school year. So we have a plan in place to do that for next year. The board will have to see that plan, but it's too late to do it for this year. So we can't make up the days. So we plan to have that in place for next year. That will give us a buffer of 5 e-learning days, but there's also, we'll be meeting with Jesse, our IT guy, as we work up that plan because it requires some things that we don't currently have in place. Not all of our kids have Chromebooks, right? Only our middle schoolers have Chromebooks. So an e-learning day makes some assumptions about access that is not currently true of all of our students. So
I would add, Kirsten, that we're already doing some of the work of that discussion by acknowledging that 7th and 8th graders have different requirements because they do have Chromebooks. And so MDE also recommends involving the union. So we'll have to bring them in and see where the union stands on us holding different groups of teachers accountable for different things on those days.
So couple of different questions you asked there. So we do plan to have an e-learning plan in place for next year. And then I heard you asking, should we, for lack of a better word, pad the calendar ahead of time so that we're not faced with something like this. We have a maximum of 5 e-learning days that we could use. Minneapolis schools maxed their 5 days out this year and had to also have a snow day on top of that. So we thought we had a pretty generous calendar this year, and it turned out not to be. We had a couple of days where, despite the forecast, there wasn't the snow that was predicted, and we didn't have school on those days. So it was a little tricky this year. We haven't approved the calendar, I know, for next year. So it might not be a bad idea to have us take one more look at the calendar and see where we could add a day. To avoid this, I'm not sure if we need it, if we're going to have e-learning days, right? Because we'll have that padding of 5 days in there.
Can I ask a clarifying question on e-learning? Does it have to be online? Or could we not send out, if we know it's kind of coming, right? Like, for example, last week, when we had the days off, we kind of knew in the middle of the school day, could it not be possible to send a packet or a tic-tac-toe type of choose activities, especially for younger kids that might not do well on electronics? Is that a possibility in terms of equitable abilities too? Or does it have to be online synchronous types of Zoom types of things?
There's a variety of things that are allowed under e-learning, including for different age groups.
Kirsten, I have the answer to this question because it's very reminiscent of things we did for COVID. And MDE defines this type of learning as, Esther would have the exact word. It's not considerable, but I think it may be like quality interaction with a teacher. So it only counts if the students are looking face to face with the teacher, hence e-learning, and not, at home learning or homeschool learning or something like that, which is why we don't have a plan for it right now, because we didn't think that this was a great idea. I think coming off of COVID, our kindergarten families were loud and clear about, oh, that wasn't great, let's not do that. And so I think that's why we decided to not do the e-learning plan, which is why we would have to sit down and talk about the differences between K-6 and 7-8.
All right, Director Christensen, do you have a recommendation? Or does a board member have a recommendation?
I will say that option 4, as opposed to option 4A, I'm showing them here, but you probably can't see them now. Julie, is it possible to make them all the way visible again?
Yes.
So here's option 4. It is the least complicated between 4 and 4A. So 4A has some transportation issues. So it just, and 4A requires some scheduling. Some scheduling that we can do, but it preserves grading time. So we can make either one work.
If you anticipate losing a grading day, is there a way to work to gain that time back for teachers leading up to that point? Like,
Not really.
Not up to, but after there is January, I'm sorry, gosh, June 15th is a teacher work day, and then we would just have to move the day that grades were due.
Was that discussed at the meeting yesterday?
No, I just had that thought in the last 24 hours. That's a day that's usually used for all of the other stuff that teachers have to do at the end.
Cleaning out
Mhm.
classrooms and stuff like that. Uh-huh.
Yes, yes.
So, teachers, what is your thought about that? About using June 15th as a grading day?
School day or grading day?
Grading day.
I mean, the amount of work always stays the same.
What do you mean?
Whatever you do, what I mean is, if you put the work that you have to do on grading day on the day of June 15th, then the work that was supposed to be done on June 15th has to go somewhere then too. Like just because you put that one amount of work on a different day, doesn't mean that that amount of work that was scheduled to be on that day doesn't go into thin air.
I think the other thing to recognize is that we're also losing time on the 26th, which is a day that we start to ramp up grading. That's when we start to, finalize. That's when we also start to do the end of year things that surround class compositions, that surround, I don't know, what else do we do? Those discussions and things that would typically have happened on that day of the 26th would also be moving too. And then if we've got everyone in on 6/9 and grading day is moving to 6/15 essentially, then yeah, where are we putting all of that? It's just getting pushed farther.
And Principal St. Benedict, do you feel confident that we could work out a schedule that would be equitable, more or less, on June 9th for teachers to share the burden of teaching on that day?
I'm confident that we can produce a schedule that would assure that all teachers would receive time. I can't do it so that all teachers would receive the same amount of time. The things that Emily Albers was talking about, Director Albers is talking about with class composition. We've talked about those in middle school, and that would switch to like SWST time. For ES, Director Aberhardt's right, it's going to end up at a team meeting, and it's going to take up the time spent on other things. Which is why all of these options
Are
none of them are
imperfect.
great. None of them are great. And yet we still have the same constraints from MDE, the same requirements. And we're kind of stuck between that rock and a hard place.
The only thing that I fear is that this work will have to be done. And the fear that I have is that it will have to be done during outside of contract hours, because it will have to be done at some point. And if there's not time allotted to it for whatever reason it is, it will have to be completed at some point.
You're talking about grading work?
Whatever it will end up being, whatever we shift around in some way,
Mhm.
it will have to be completed by the end of the year.
Mhm. So the option, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, how are snow days, how does the teacher contract account for snow days? Like, is it,
They're just off days for teachers.
so you don't get paid?
They do get paid, but they don't work. So these are, we're making up. So
The contract's based on number of.
It's also important that we get salary pay, so it's not like we got $15 an hour for the days we're sitting at home,
No, I know.
yeah.
I thought there was something about just 2 days of snow days that they don't need to
Yeah.
make up, and then after that.
I think that's for EAs,
Mhm.
right?
I need
That's
to
for
keep
the base.
picking on the teachers. I understand that grading day is so late in the year because you need to have a certain amount of work done before you can begin grades. Can any grading start on the 26th? Is that late enough for teachers to have some of the work done on that day? Or is not enough work done for a majority of teachers until you get to the last, week of school? Is
So I
there a
can-
benefit to having time on the 26th and not professional development time for teacher grading?
It's too early, isn't it? 5/26 is too early for grading.
It's too early to finalize grades, and then the kindergarten teachers just reminded us that their report cards look very different, and so they're writing comments about the students that are very time consuming.
Yeah, I think all elementary school has
All elementary has a different.
something like that, which
Mhm.
is why I understand elementary school and kindergarten teachers needing a little bit more grading time.
Yep.
I guess where I'm going with this is, can we do the 26th and the 9th as 7th and 8th grade only days? If we're gonna figure it out for one, why not figure it out for two? If we have another snow day, we gotta talk about it again in another meeting and probably add the rest of the school to
Mhm.
the 26th. And maybe if Lori and I figure out a field trip, the
Well-
6th, 7th graders can go on a field trip the
So
26th.
yeah, and the other thing that's nice about the 26th is that would just be the 7th grade and
Yeah.
a few 8th graders. And figuring out how to find a fun field trip for 80 kids, 70 kids, right?
Mhm.
Not even 60 some kids. So that seems easy, and it seems like we get around the busing somehow, and we don't need food service in. Is that a kinder club day? Is kinder club open that day? Anyone know?
We're pretty sure
So
it is.
kinder club would be open, so if any 7th graders usually watch their younger siblings, they have kinder club
We can offer it for free.
available. That seems easy,
Nothing.
other than, if we get a lot of snow days, and then we're trying to figure that out anyway. And then I don't know if the 15th is a better option than the grading day, than the 9th. I know you said people don't want their school year to go later, but it's also a Thursday, right? Because we end on a Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna try to speak from a standpoint of a teacher, but I would assume that teachers have the same attitude as students, looking for having that last day, of whether it's ritual or
Yeah.
cleaning room after the students are out of the building. I don't really want to impact that.
Just a reminder that the last day, Friday, Director Hartman referred to the Thursday, that Friday is a comp day that we give teachers as a result of working 2 nights of evening conferences. Which is a
So I
reason to
guess-
not extend the year by 1 day.
I would support, or, I mean, how, do I have to make a motion, Julie?
Yep.
So I would make a motion that 4/21 becomes an ER day as planned. 5/26 becomes a 7th and 8th grade contact day. grading day becomes a 7th and 8th grade contact day. And recess, that's not calendar change, so that's completely up to your discretion.
So the one thing that we haven't talked about here is that if we have K-6 not in school, well, they were already not planning to be in school, I guess, so it doesn't matter. I was just thinking of Kinder Club capacity for Kinder Club on
Yeah.
those days. If they were already not planning to be in school on those days, then
Yep.
it should be okay.
So we're really just taking 2 grades and adding
And really-
school days to their calendar.
And then
And really one on the
26,
26th.
Yeah.
one grade.
So I'll make the motion for that.
And the only glitch there is it's right before Memorial Day, so if people already have plans, they'll
Well, then
take
the
a
kids aren't
personal
gonna
day.
come
They'll
anyways.
take a personal day, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the motion, Director Hyde. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Aberhard. A motion on the table is. Let's see. Let's see here. Can you repeat your
So
motion?
what you
Director
see
Hyde?
on the screen, except the second line would be for 7th and 8th grade only as well.
Okay, so the motion is for option 4A plus making the May 26th only for 7th and 8th graders.
And
A
that
full
still
student
gives
contact
the
day.
K-6 enough,
They only need 1 more day. They already have enough hours.
So snow days.
but so which day is that?
The PDJ, the ER day on the
Sorry, it's
21st.
just really hard for me to read that.
Yeah, that's the extra day that the first through
For
6th
everybody.
needs. Kindergarten doesn't need anything. 1st through 6th needs 1 more day, no more hours. So that's the student contact day for everyone.
Even though it's only a half day.
Mhm.
Are you certain of that? I'm all of a sudden not certain of that.
I don't
I
know.
went based on
Earlier,
your-
An early release day is not a full day.
I think it
Yeah.
counts as a
It's
full
early.
contact day. That's why
Because no,
it's just early release. It's not like halftime. That's why it has to go to 12:45. Right?
We don't count by instructional days, though. We count by minutes. And so I think if you can go back a couple slides, Dr. Christensen, and check, I think that's a really good question.
Well, I
In
think,
the- In the flexible scheduling report worksheet, the 3 early release days are counted with the 161 full days to get to 164.
but that's only 5 through 8, right?
yeah, I think
No,
there,
well.
I think, well, there's a minimum hours and that's what we generally go by. There's also a minimum contact days and
That is.
it's 165.
Yeah, it says right here, 1 school day or partial school day needed for all grades.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think if we keep 421 early release for the whole school. 526 for 7th and 8th grade, 6-9 for 7th and 8th grade.
It is worth noting that we have never done this before.
Mhm.
We have never done this before. Our school calendar is not set up. You know. I'm just gonna say this for the record, right, that if we were going to. We're only having this discussion because we had snow days and need to make up time, and there's a difference in the number of days needed for 7th and 8th graders, but if we were going to follow this same logic in our regular school calendar. We would let kindergartners through 6th graders out 4 days earlier or whatever. Right, so it's a little bit of strange logic to adopt this logic now, just in this circumstance. So it just seems worth noting that.
I think at least from my perspective, it's balancing, how can we give
Yeah.
the most number of teachers back, the
Mhm.
most amount of time?
Yeah.
And still deal with the compliance issue.
Mhm.
And I think especially on the 26th, again, barring more snow days, and then we're back to the drawing board. But, and then maybe everybody shows up on the 26th, then hopefully by June 9th, we know if we need more snow days. It is Minnesota, but, it has the fewest kids in the building needing instruction minutes.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? So just for clarification, this proposal does not have any further buffer for a snow day.
Yeah, it still has the recess hours.
No. You're correct.
What?
There's no additional buffer, because that would be only adding one additional all school day,
We only need one
and that'll
additional.
bring us to those, so there's no buffer, that's your question.
No, there's still a buffer.
Not for,
No.
not for any of the kids K through 6.
Because 1 through 6 still need that.
They need one additional day. That's why they're here on 421.
Right,
Yeah.
to make up for what.
And
they-
so
Oh,
it's asking, is there a
understood.
buffer?
Yep. Yeah, there's no buffer, but if there's, and that's what, if we have another snow day, next board meeting, we make all the kids come on the 26th. Like, hopefully it doesn't happen, but I would rather have to do this again than take away days from the teachers that aren't needed.
So this is the new proposal, but the teachers have not seen it or comment.
No, but it takes into account what we heard from them.
Yeah.
And then some, right, tries to be generous and on another day.
Is there critical professional development that will be offered on that day that 7th and 8th grade teachers would miss?
Well, it wouldn't. On the 26th,
26th.
it wouldn't
won't
be a
be.
professional development day.
What?
The 26th will not be a professional
It
development.
will
day.
be
Why
for the K through,
For
The
K through
8th
six.
graders will be gone, and the 7th graders will either be in instruction or on a field trip. So the 7th grade teachers, I think Julie's question was, what about the 7th grade teachers? Will they miss professional development stuff?
Well, we've never done that before either, where we only do professional development for some teachers.
so it sounds like the 8th grade or who was ever on capstone would have missed it anyway.
Yeah,
I will say, I mean,
Oh,
the thing that
They'll be gone.
he's all for it. No. I'm not speaking for you. I guess the one thing that I think of, I don't know, all the time what they plan for professional development or if that's even been planned out this year as far as how long or, what would be happening on a day like that. I could check last year's emails for reference points. A good portion of that time, at least in past years, like I mentioned, is time for us to sit down and do class composition. That is part of that professional development day, is to start to, wind down the year and to help ourselves, get to a point of working on things for the following year.
Yeah.
So,
I'll also add, and I, mostly for the sake of ensuring that I understand what I'm proposing. The way I'm reading calendar now, all teachers are losing that PD day if the whole school's here on the 26th. So in my mind, I was thinking the 26th wouldn't become a PD day for the rest. It would be to make up for the grading time that they're losing on that grading day. And that's why I asked if they could get any sort of free work for grading done or something on that 26th, even though not all the assignments are in and everything like that. Ideally, we get the 7th graders on field trip, all the teachers are here. You can use the day however you want. But if we're gonna do the 9th, figure out a schedule for the teachers to help each other, so all teachers have some grading, and a lot of teachers have some contact time. We can also do that the 26th. And then that,
except it's too early for grading, right?
And we need professional development time.
I mean, as far as
but we're losing the professional development time either way.
why?
Because it's either everybody's here on the 26th or just the 7th graders are here on the 26th. If
And
everybody's
so-
here, there's no professional development day.
Right, so
I
the
think
7th
you're-
grade teachers would miss out on professional development,
Can I offer some clarification?
please.
Professional development is very loosely defined by the state. And so things that qualify under professional development and professional development days are things like department meetings, all teacher meetings. So when Director Albers is talking about class composition, that is always done on that day and that can continue to be done. And then teachers won't be using, like Director Aberhard mentioned before, borrowed time from team meetings or other meetings. That is also a day where the milestones for the year are usually accomplished and you're looking towards the next year, or you're capping up. So you're scoping and sequencing. And those are the things that are also planned on that day. So I think all of the things that we would have normally accomplished on a PD day can probably still occur. That day just looks a little different than a beginning of the year PD day.
Would it be possible to get substitutes for the 7th grade teachers?
Yeah.
To give them the same opportunity for PD activities?
It would only require 3 teachers.
Oh, can do that.
If you think about it, we need one for 7A, one for 7B, and one for 7C.
Mhm.
I'd offer a friendly amendment to your motion to say that we would offer substitutes for the 7th grade teachers
On both
on
days.
5/26.
Yeah, I'm all for that, Julie. I think all we really need to vote on is changing the calendar, and then administration can do the logistics behind it however they want, and I would fully support hiring substitutes for the 7th grade on that day. So if it needs to be in the motion or not, I'm happy with it.
Principal St. I hope you're taking notes because I've got my slideshow up and can't take notes while we're talking.
I am taking notes.
And then question is what happens with the remaining 8th graders?
Yep, they would just get absorbed into the 7th grade. The 7th
Yes.
grade is the smallest
And we
class we
can-
have in middle school.
We can do that, that's fine to.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yep, because that day is going to be fun-er anyway.
Perfect.
All right. Director Hyde, I think it should be in the motion so that there's clarity for all teachers on what to anticipate on that day.
Yeah, great.
Do I need a second on a amendment or how does that work? I think you can just amend your motion.
I amended my motion to accommodate the hiring of substitute for the 26th for 7th graders.
Perfect. For a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's going to take me a minute to get back to my presentation because it always goes away. But it won't let me close this out. Just keeps going back to this one. Let me escape. It won't let me escape out of it. How do I?
We hit escape.
It won't. It doesn't do anything.
Oh, you don't want that.
There we go. Perfect. Oh. Okay.
I just want to touch base on the agenda for the remaining part of the meeting. I think we need to approve policy 509 tonight. Is that right?
Correct.
Correct. So we need to reserve time for that. Director Christensen, did you want to take next year's calendar off the agenda for consideration of approval
Sure.
tonight and do it next month?
Mhm.
Okay. That
I
way
think
you
that's a
can-
good idea. We can also look at if we're gonna build in another snow day or two before.
Okay, all right. So I'd like to propose amending the agenda to remove the action to consider the 23-24 calendar. And to skip board committee reports, except for the governance and leadership development. And we'll skip the liaison updates.
Can we also move the key performance indicators to next month?
Sure.
Okay, so do you want me
So
to
it's
just
on
get the
good.
rest of my report?
So you can still do your professional development.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you want to,
school highlights.
do you want to
And
see school
school
highlights?
highlights,
Okay.
yeah. All right, is there objection to that change in the agenda? Okay, without objection, we have a new agenda. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Julie.
So I'm not sharing, am I? Thought I was
Not at the
sharing.
moment.
Okay. Okay, so we're not doing key performance indicators, right? Okay.
Right, correct.
Let me move forward from those. All right, and I'm skipping professional development, or I'm doing professional.
You can do that one.
Okay, all right. So I do a number of different professional development things throughout the year in a number of different areas, and I just wanted to highlight 4 that I thought might be of interest to you. I recently did an online paid course on charter school budget overview, best practices and processes. This was an online paid course. It was interesting. I learned not a whole lot that was new, and there were some things that were not super relevant because it was based in Texas, and there are a lot of things that are state specific. But it was good to remind myself of certain budgeting terminology. And then 3 members of my team and I did a plan, or sorry, no, that's the second one. The third one. The second one I did by myself called Planning for Succession. A 3-part series that MDE sponsored. Won't go into a lot of detail there, but it was about planning for succession in a variety of ways, both for an executive director and for other positions in the school, and how to build capacity on your team. So that was 3 parts, 1 hour each. So it was pretty drinking out of a fire hose kind of things, but they provided lots of materials for me to reference afterwards. And it's just really interesting discussions with other leaders across the state. And then 2 members of my team and I, Principal Saint Benig and Andrew Haugen, from special ed, participated in a series, a 4-part series on effective teaching feedback called Facilitating Meaningful Feedback. That was really interesting about and had some interesting videos watching people give teacher feedback. So all of us participate in teacher observations throughout the year. And so this was a series to help us focus better on how to provide that feedback and how to receive input from the teachers. And then the final thing I wanted to highlight is that I participated in the Emergent School Directors Conference sponsored by the ZFA, the organization that brings us one of our teachers every year and does the DSD. So this was all of the emergent school directors from across the country were invited to gather in New York City for 1 day. It was super fun and pretty intense because there was a lot to do in 1 day. It was, I would say probably the most important part of it was just networking and meeting other immersion school leaders from all over the country. And we had one of the most meaningful sessions was where we just got together and talked about how big we are, what grades we have, what extra programs we have, how we do capstones, for example, how we do exchanges, do we have interns? Some of the schools have been around for a long time. Ours is the biggest, but some have been around longer than we have. And it was just a really, really wonderful networking opportunity, and the ZFA paid for that and look forward to meeting those people again.
Is,
Any questions on any of those?
is that
Yeah.
German immersion schools only or?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And then they had a whole separate day after that for teachers who, for people, leaders of what they call Saturday schools. So those are German schools across the country that aren't immersion schools, but there's a lot of them, right? But that just teach German, sort of like the GAI would be sort of a Saturday school, right? They do language classes, but they're not a school per se. But the ZFA oversees and supports those people as well. And there were reps from textbook companies, and so people there to help build curriculum and lots of different opportunities. So it would actually be a great thing for Prince St. Benny to go to in the future as well. Any questions on any of those? Then we will move on to the school highlights. So we have, we just finished our bookmark design contest with the theme of reading is magical. And I'm just here to tell you that it is hard to choose the winners. And these are our winners, and the top two from elementary, the first top one from elementary and middle school, we'll have them printed out and shared with the whole community. History Day, you probably read a lot about that in the Rundbrief. The theme this year was Frontiers in History, People's Places, Ideas. And our students were able to produce research in the categories of research papers, exhibits, websites, documentaries, and performances. I got to judge the categories of documentary and performances and was so deeply impressed by the work that our students did and their creativity. And their lack of nerves. Also, they were just really confident. I was really impressed. So 63 students, which was included 43 individuals, and then as a number of group projects advanced to regionals, which takes place next week. It's a very big deal. So look at all of those kids. All of those kids are going to regionals. It's an impressive bunch. And it was a pretty happy assembly. And I just enjoyed so much that this is sheer academics, right? I mean, it was the level of excitement you would expect of a sporting event. They were really excited. So probably just in the interest of time, I won't play the video, but this is a video of our kids doing YMCA at the middle school dance. The theme was Wonderland, beautifully decorated. They had so much fun. How do I make it?
Can you send us the link?
That doesn't work. on it.
It doesn't work in
it
our
doesn't.
packet, and I'd love to watch it later. If
Oh.
you can send out the link after the meeting or tomorrow or something.
Okay, well, it's only a couple seconds. Should I just play it? I just don't know. I just don't know how to make the sound play because my sound is off. Let's see. No, can't do that. I don't think it'll play with sound, but you can see it's sideways for some reason. So they're doing YMCA here. We disco ball in our gym. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. And then the Afton Alps Middle School field trip was an impressive feat, getting all those kids out there. For some kids, it's their first experience skiing. Nice connection to especially Austrian and Swiss culture, Southern German culture, where skiing is really important. And then thanks
And
to
you said
everyone.
We were a great group.
They were a great group. Were you there with them?
After now said we were a great group.
Oh,
It's
that's
one of the
lovely.
biggest, or maybe the biggest that they posted,
That's
at
lovely to
least this
hear.
year, maybe
The biggest
effort
this year.
this year.
That's
And
lovely.
that the kids were fantastic.
That's wonderful to
Nice.
hear. And then thanks to everyone who was able to come to our solidarity event. We had over 80 people there. And it was a really wonderful event that was facilitated by AmazeWorks and featured a panel of BIPOC community members whose testimonies really, whose words were really, really powerful and gave us a lot to think about. And I've heard really wonderful things from the community and from teachers about that event. Valentine's Day was fun. I did a lot of moving about the school on that day, and our elementary schoolers especially had some amazing craft projects going on, and lots of parents in the school that day helping out. Our teachers organized lots of things that was really fun. And then finally, if you didn't see it on your way in, it's worth stopping in the atrium at some point to see the exhibit. This is not what it looks like in our space. It's organized a little differently, but the exhibit Lest We Forget was installed yesterday and will be here through March 31st. It's on the life of Holocaust survivor Fred Amram, who, to my great sorrow, just passed away on February 12th. We're honored to be able to honor his life through the exhibit. We are still holding the event on March 16th. So here's a couple of examples of some of the parts from it. That's a Thursday, and his wife and co-collaborator, Sandra Brick, will speak that evening and talk a little bit about Fred's life and about their work together. And she will also be coming the day before that to school, and we'll be working with one of our art classes. These kids will be illustrating one of the panels with their own artwork. So she'll be working with the kids on that. And then Fred had a presentation that he did about his life that he loved giving to students, and he was planning to come and speak to our 8th grade students. And it's really important to Sandra that she continue that work for him. So she will be coming to speak to our combined 8th grade students that day. And given how fresh his passing is, I'm deeply touched that she's willing to do that. And I think it'll be really meaningful for our students and for our community. So I encourage you all to take time to see that and to plan to come on the 16th.
All right. Thank you so much for that report.
Yeah, especially for the school highlights. It's fun to see those things.
Yeah,
And some pictures of them.
Can I ask a quick question?
First,
Oh, the bookmark contest wasn't in German this year. The theme. Reading is magical.
I
Last
don't
year,
know.
I think the theme was in German.
Was it in German last year? I don't remember. I don't organize it. That's a good question. It should
I was
be,
just
huh?
thinking for like our, trying to
Yeah,
increase our
immersion.
culture.
Yeah,
So, it just caught my eye.
yeah. Thanks for that. I meant to mention that this exhibit is funded by, completely funded by a grant from Nuveen TIAA, and that a very generous family named TCGIS as a recipient of this employer grant. And so we're really grateful to that family who has chosen to remain anonymous, and we appreciate their generosity. Katerina sent me something that she asked me to read, if I can find it really quickly. Let me see if it's in my inbox. Can I read this quickly? Dear board members, there was a glaring and totally unintentional omission in my presentation this evening that I want to correct immediately. For many years, Katlin Sino has been an invaluable part of our international hiring process. Once a teacher has accepted our offer, Katlin has connected them individually to help them prepare for life here in Minnesota. She has offered firsthand expertise about the big and little details and discusses the potential challenges head on with new international staff, while also telling them what a wonderful place Minnesota and TCGIS truly are. Once our international teachers are here, she has helped them get settled in life outside of school and been their resource teacher, a coach and supportive colleague to help them get acclimated to our school and to work through the cultural differences they undoubtedly experience. Katlin is a true champion of our school and also an honest, genuine, and supportive partner for our international teacher community. I wish I had said all of this publicly. I was too focused on the nuts and bolts of the process that I didn't leave room for this very vital human aspect of the process. I want you to know what an incredibly positive impact Katlin Sino has made and the vital role she plays in our ability to bring and keep international teachers in our school community. So she wanted to make sure that was on the record for tonight.
Very nice. Yes, I have a question about that. Is she compensated for that time where she's?
As a resource teacher, she is. Katerina is not online, so I don't know about, I think she must volunteer for the stuff that she does, just helping teachers.
Get acclimated?
Yeah, get acclimated. Good question.
Maybe look into making that a paid position.
Mhm.
I imagine it takes a lot of work.
Liaison, international teacher liaison. Mhm.
Okay, does that bring us to governance? Did you have more questions? All right, Director Albers, please walk us through the process.
I'm gonna start with the easiest one. And then I have a quick kind of side note on one of the other ones. 903 is ready for approval tonight. There's a lot of policy that goes through governance, and I'm hoping to get us through all of it. So I do want to keep this one on our plan. So looking at 903, it's visitors to the school district buildings and sites. There was not a lot of discussion surrounding things that might need to be changed. There was just actually a few grammatical changes, as well as just saying the executive director versus director, very, very simplistic things. So that's the first policy that is up for approval tonight. The second policy is a little bit more. So I'd like to make just an amendment to the agenda that we are looking to retire policy 509.1, which is the early admissions policy. This is a policy that is not required by the state of Minnesota for us to have. However, if we do have it, we must, of course, follow all requirements that are designed for that. And currently we do not. One of the things that's not being met is the checklist that is required for those looking to do early admission. And MDE advised Nicole Krashel that they don't have a template for us to use, or a checklist or an assessment for us to use on this, but there are certain districts that do have a good robust what MDE is considering acceptable checklist and assessment. And so we would like to retire 509.1 until we can get that up to par, so that we are not struggling to make that checklist and assessment at the end of a school year, while this is kind of something that's holding us back from being fully authorized and meeting MDE's requirements. So I would ask for that amendment as well. I don't know if I want that separated. And then lastly is 509, which is the standard enrollment policy. First and foremost, thank you to all of you that have worked on this policy. This was a massive undertaking, to the point that we had a special governance meeting to deal with just the enrollment policies. And so, as you can see, this is actually a revised version of the original draft. And then we've added comments on top of that. So this has gotten a lot of editing. And so what we're looking at for this is cleaning up the process, understanding what the timeline is with our digital access to enrollment policy, what the lottery looks like, what our preferences are through this policy, what's actually happening as compared to what was once in this policy. There's a lot of changes, to the point that I don't feel like I could completely and accurately tell you all of them and get us out by 9:30. We've had this policy checked multiple times. And so I would ask that this be approved tonight as well, with the changes that have been made very extensively. Director Hartman, am I missing something, like, maybe like a big highlight? I'm trying to think of all of them off the top of my head.
Yeah,
and they're
no, so
blurring.
the substance of the policy is like 80%, 85%, maybe 90%, the same as what it was before. One of the shortcomings was that we only described the kindergarten lottery. MDE came back with a question like, is this the same for all the other grades? And specifically, do you have staff preference for non-kindergarten lotteries for the other classes? So we were fixing those things and ended up just, a lot of it is rewriting it to make the process clearer, but it's not necessarily different than what we have done in the past and mostly how the policy reflected that.
Mhm. Thank you. So with that, I would make a motion to amend the agenda to retire 509.1, which is the early admissions. I would, and then ask for approval of 903 and 509.
All
I'll
right,
second.
thank you for that motion, Director Albers, and for the second, Director Hyde. For discussion. Okay, seeing no discussion. All those in favor of approving policy 509, 903, and retiring policy 509.1, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we should take a minute to publicly thank
Seriously.
Emily and Lori and Nicole for their work on that, because just sitting in the meetings listening to it was a lot. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a long time coming, so we're very thankful to have it wrapped up.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, that takes us to the end of our agenda. So without objection, I'll adjourn the meeting. The time is 9:24.
6 minutes early.
Thank you, everybody.